The Formovie Theatre is a triple laser 4K HDR ultra short throw projector. It's astonishingly bright even at larger screen sizes, and as you can see, those massive projection sizes are pretty trivial for the Formovie Theatre. It has built-in eye protection from those lasers and surprisingly great audio. If you're looking to invest in a triple laser UST projector for your home theatre, it's well worth checking out. But as ever, it's not perfect, even at the retail price of $3,000 to $3,500. So join me, James Bruce, in today's MakeUseOf.com review as I try to help you decide if the compromises of the Formovie Theatre are worth it for you. The Formovie Theatre retails for around $3,000 to $3,500, which is certainly not what anyone would describe as budget. This is very much high-end, so I have set my expectations appropriately. However, I should note that for the features offered, it's actually on the cheaper side of high-end. A triple laser is particularly rare at this price point. The Formovie Theatre doesn't break any conventions when it comes to laser TV design. It's a massive, great big slab that's intended to be sat on a table next to your wall, rather than, say, ceiling mounted or projected from behind you. Now, I opted to site it on the floor just so that I could really push that projection size to its limit. The fact that it can sit so close to the projection surface is due to the ultra short throw lens system, which results in a projection ratio of around 0.23 to 1, meaning at a theoretical 23 centimeters from the wall, you'd get a 1 meter wide image. But it's never that quite exact. Still, it is a very impressive throw ratio, with the front of the projector slab about 16 inches from the wall. I can get an image, as you can see, of around 295 centimeters, roughly 3 meters or 116 inches wide. And that's the biggest I can get due to the vertical offset. If I had raised the projector up on a table at this distance, my low ceiling would have meant it was on the ceiling. There's about 100% vertical offset, so roughly 1 foot away from the wall, it's roughly 1 foot projected upwards. All right, let's talk about some technical specifications. The Formovie Theatre uses a 0.47-inch DLP chip with pixel shifting to turn a 1080p native resolution into a 4K image. Now, this pixel shifting happens so fast in reality that you wouldn't know it's being generated by a 1080p screen, so don't let that fact put you off. And you do still get what we would call a native 4K image. It's not a fake 1080p times 4 image. It is 4K for all intents. In terms of brightness, it claims 2,800 lumens maximum, which is definitely on the higher end for home projection. Not the highest, but still very impressive and more than enough to watch a reasonable sized screen in the daytime. I do struggle when it's this large in the bright sun, but as you can see with the curtains closed, it's perfectly visible. Utilizing a triple laser system, that means that the red, green and the blue colors are separately projected. And it delivers a 3,000 to 1 contrast ratio for excellent blacks and ensures that you won't see any rainbow artifacts as you can with some cheaper single laser systems. The Formovie Theatre is also one of the first home projectors to support Dolby Vision, which is an even better form of HDR, similar to HDR10+, but more widely supported. Now, I say more widely supported, but unfortunately I don't have any media with Dolby Vision, so all I can test is regular HDR content. Around the back of the projector, or is that the front, the side facing the wall, you'll find 3 HDMI 2.1 ports, one of which has eARC for sending audio back to your amplifier or AV receiver, should you opt to use the built-in Android system to play content and still want the sound out somewhere else. There's also 2 USB-A ports for powering some plug-in dongles, a 3.5mm stereo out and optical audio out, and finally a LAN port as well in case you have sketchy Wi-Fi. I do have an access point in this room, so I've been testing exclusively on 4 GHz Wi-Fi and haven't really needed the LAN port for any kind of streaming, though I have experienced some trouble with the Wi-Fi. More on that later. Of course, the most important aspect of any projector is the image quality. Now, I should clarify, I don't project onto a screen. I use my chalk painted wall, which I find is very good, actually, with no hot spots or weird reflections that you might typically get from a silk emulsion. I do actually have a screen just over there, but in my testing I found the wall gives better output. The only thing I will say is that because it's coming from such an extreme downwards angle, it really does show up our botched plastering job, unlike other projectors. So any imperfections in your wall will be very obvious. So as I said, even in daytime use, even with a screen this large, almost the entire height of my wall, it's still plenty bright. And again, that's likely due to the triple laser output. So let's talk about both media viewing and gaming. Most content on the Formovie theatre looks absolutely stunning. But particularly older 1080p SDR content, it does a superb job of upscaling that and really makes the details and colours pop, whether that's for realistic landscapes, sci-fi space scenes, or unnatural looking sort of cartoons. It all looks amazing. The black levels are overall superb. They're obviously still not comparable to an OLED TV, but compared to other projectors, I found them really good. However, I then tried to test out some 4K HDR content, both via the built-in Android TV system and via a local Plex instance on my PC, with Windows set in HDR color mode, and something just didn't feel right. No matter how I tweaked the built-in settings, of which there are a lot of things to tweak, it still wasn't as good as I was expecting HDR content to look on a projector of this cost. The wide colour ranges just didn't feel that wide, and they didn't feel that gloriously colourful. They just didn't feel as dynamic as I think they should. And it's entirely possible that I had some wrong settings, but after resetting everything and trying again, it still just didn't feel right. And in fairness, as I said, there are an awful lot of settings there, and for some people that's going to be quite annoying. It wasn't bad by any means, but to be honest, the SDR content upscaled and then, sort of forced into HDR just looked better. Still, I might just be nitpicking at this point, and overall it was a superb image, and of course it depends a lot on the quality of your source material, encodings, etc., and how long you're willing to put into getting those settings right. Gaming on the Formovie theatre I found to be a bit of a mixed experience. Gaming on laser TVs in general like this is always going to be a concern due to the higher than average input lag, and in this case it's around 42 milliseconds at 4K 60Hz with game mode enable. The fact that it has a game mode means it's not as bad as some laser TVs by far, but it's still noticeable and less than perfect. While this is acceptable for some light gaming, in any sort of twitchy games that require fast input, you are going to suffer there. We tried some sessions of Minecraft Dungeons on PC with this, and having been using the BenQ X3000i 4K gaming projector for the past month with 12 milliseconds of input lag, I really noticed the difference. It was playable, but it just felt like a constant barrier at the back of my mind to my full enjoyment of the game. Additionally, I found a lot of screen tearing, and if you enable VSync on your computer to fix the screen tear, you end up with yet more input lag. So when I activated that and tried LEGO Brawls, the input lag was just absurd. Like I say, for other light gaming, casual gaming things like City Builders or LEGO Bricktales, it wasn't a huge deal at all. The lag just doesn't matter. The incredible clarity and colour range offered by the Formovie theatre looked incredible. But for shooters, beat-em-ups, dungeon crawlers, this really isn't suitable if gaming will be your primary use case. You do need to look elsewhere. In fact, I would suggest not even looking at laser TVs because they're all pretty bad when it comes to lag. Even if this is one of the better ones, it's still not quite there yet. I also just got a PS5, so I hooked that up to try out with Call of Duty, and again, much the same story there. While it does support glorious 4K HDR at 60Hz, and the game, I will not deny, it looks absolutely stunning, I did somewhat feel the lag and ended up with sort of middling to low scores when I'm pretty sure I'm better than that. I also found it pretty frustrating that it didn't remember the last mode that you had set for that particular input. So despite identifying the input as a PlayStation 5, it wouldn't automatically switch into game mode. So a couple of times I actually started playing, realized the input lag was horrendously worse than normal, and then had to switch back to game mode again because it hadn't remembered that. Finally, on the subject of gaming, I will also add that actually getting the 4K to work was a bit frustrating at times. The console or the PC would frequently drop back to 1080p and say 4K HDR not supported, as if the handshake wasn't sort of being completed correctly. This usually happened if I had turned the console or the PC off, left the projector on, and then turned it back on again. But unplugging and replugging the HDMI cable and then restarting sort of tended to fix it. But wow, That really got annoying quickly, and hopefully this is something that Formovie can fix in future firmware updates. So let's touch on the audio briefly, because if you spent $3,000 on a high-end cinema projector, realistically you're probably not going to use the built-in speakers as anything except a stopgap measure until your real speakers get delivered. But the Formovie Theatre does, in fact, have some nice hefty speakers tuned by Bowers & Wilkins, and it supports virtual Dolby Atmos. Now, surprisingly, the audio quality is actually pretty good. Sort of halfway decent soundbar level anyway, I would say, and compared to a ceiling-mounted projector, of course, you're benefiting from the fact that it's actually facing you from the front, so you get the full impact. And there's also a fair degree of stereo separation there from the side-firing speakers. It does get very loud, and even, dare I say, it has some good bass in there. At no point was I left wanting for volume anyway. I'll also say that I really appreciated the additional options on sound output, like voice enhancer, because honestly, voices can be so tricky to hear nowadays in some movies with these idiot sound producers that we seem to have that think everyone has a set of reference speakers. As ever though, I don't think anyone would seriously drop $3,000 on a nice projector for cinema quality viewing and then just cheap out and not buy an actual surround sound system. But still, it's pretty good and the extra features are appreciated. Okay, on to software. Built into the device is Android TV 11 OS, and if you've used Google TV on anything else, you'll be right at home here, with a wide variety of apps being available. The interface is reasonably responsive. However, like a lot of projectors that implement any form of Android TV, it's also unlicensed for a host of apps, such as Netflix, BBC iPlayer, and all four. But even more annoyingly, it actually gives you the option to install Netflix during setup as sort of a bundled app thing, but it just errors out if you try to run it. It does support Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus for 4K HDR streaming, but obviously if Netflix is your main provider of choice, then tough. You'll need to either buy a Chromecast Ultra, Roku, or other officially supported streaming stick and plug that in instead. Not a huge deal. The most important aspect of a projector is the output capabilities, not the software, and I think most people with a home cinema will just have this plugged into their AV receiver anyway as a pure output device. But you can work around the Android TV deficiencies by casting from your phone if you need to. What does more slightly worry me, however, is precisely how deeply the OS is integrated with the Formovie Theatre. Literally all of the projector settings appear to be handled via Android, and I fear what will happen if the core OS becomes corrupted somehow. There's no input button actually on the remote control. You have to go into Android, choose the Springboard app, and then change the input that way, which just sort of rubs me the wrong way. A projector should be enhanced by a streaming media operating system, not limited to operating only within its boundaries. Unlike, say, the BenQ X3000i, which has an optional streaming stick that you could plug in, but still functions without it. I also found generally the whole user experience on the Formovie Theatre to be a little bit annoying at times. I mentioned the 4K not being detected issue, but the Wi-Fi would also not work, again needing me to unplug and power it back on again, which is not a problem with other devices in this room because the access point is right there behind the camera. But as you can see at the moment, it hasn't connected to Wi-Fi. And in this case, the only option you have is to power it completely off and then power it back on again and see if it reconnects. I also found sometimes the power on sequence can be a little bit frustrating. The button maybe doesn't do anything. It'll take a minute or two before it sort of launches up. And it's one of those kind of anxiety-inducing moments when you think you've broken a $3,000 bit of equipment that's on loan. It's nothing deal-breaking alone, but all of those little bugs combined make for a less than premium experience when the pricing is decidedly premium. So, getting on to the big question, should you buy the Formovie Theatre? $3,000 certainly isn't cheap, but it does compare favourably with similarly specced projectors. Notably, others with a triple laser system are upwards of $3,000 to $5,000. So this is going to give you the best image quality you'll find in a $3,000 projector, if that's what your budget is. And you don't mind it being a relatively unknown brand. It's one of the few projectors at all that are available to give you Dolby Vision if that's one of your must-have features. The triple laser also means you get really large images and still have great brightness. It is truly impressive to behold. On the other hand, don't buy this specifically for gaming. Not only does it not support higher refresh rates at all, the input lag is such that you will notice it, and it does sometimes feel like you've dropped your controller in a vat of treacle. If you're not playing competitively or very much a casual gamer, then go ahead and buy this primarily for your home theatre and also play some games on it too. It's certainly better than some laser projectors. It does, after all, have a game mode to reduce the input lag to 42 milliseconds, but it's still not ideal, and I couldn't recommend this if gaming is your primary use case. Still, overall, the Formovie theatre is a great buy for movies. The clue is in the name. If this review helped you, then please hit like and consider subscribing. If not, head on down to the comments, tell me why, or give me your feedback, and I'll take that on board for the next review. Until next time, thanks for watching. I've been James Bruce with MakeUseOf.com Reviews.